What is up, everybody? It's your boy, Bobby from Bobby's Breakdowns, coming at you with another video and another movie review. We are going to be reviewing the newest Marvel movie that just came out this past weekend, Thunderbolts. I saw a lot of hype going into this movie, and the hype actually panned out, in my opinion. And I was happy about that, and we're going to do a full-blown spoiler review, dive into it. So with that being said, let's dive right in. The theme for this movie was dark, let's just say that. Even in the intro, when they're showing the Marvel Studios, it became black, which they've never done. So that was a telltale sign that this movie was going to be a little on the darker side, and every once in a while, you need that. So pretty much the first scene we see is Yelena jumping off of that tall building, which we did see leading up to the movie. I think she put it on Instagram that she emailed Kevin Feige a bunch of times to do it, and that was legitimately her doing it. I think it was like the second tallest building in the world. Could be wrong about that, but she did it herself. Very impressive. And she gets into a fight with all these guards as she breaks into the building. She has a security guard tied up. And she's like, I feel like you're not even listening. And she's like, oh, you're useless anyway. Then, believe it or not, we get an Oscorp reference, which blew my mind. But Yelena walks out of the building with the hamster, or gerbil, or whatever she saw earlier. And thankfully, the animal rights people won't be jumping down Marvel's throat anytime soon. She took it with her. Building explodes behind her. So then we go see Bucky Barnes for the first time in this movie. He's in court, and they are trying to impeach Valentina. Valentina does play a major role in this movie. And Valentina hit us with a line that Marvel and sports cross over at this point. She says the Avengers are not walking through that door. And if you don't know the reference, it's a Rick Pitino Celtics coach reference where he says all those people are not walking through the door. I sat in the theater, and I'm like, huh, blew my mind. Then we meet Valentina's assistant, Mel, who looks a lot like Melissa Barrera. Like, if you looked fast, you would have thought that was Melissa Barrera. And then we see the man that stole the show in this movie, in my opinion, the Red Guardian. He's sitting on his couch in his underwear and his robe, watching TV, knock on the door, leave it outside, knock on the door again. He's like, listen, if you don't leave it out there, I'm calling DoorDash headquarters on you. Okay. But it's Yelena at the door. Red Guardian opens up, and he's like, Yelena! And he's so excited. The two of them always have great chemistry together. Even going back to Black Widow, they were the best part of that movie. So the fact that those two were the best part of this movie doesn't shock me whatsoever. So Yelena calls Valentina, and she's like, after this, I want more good guy work. And Valentina's like, okay, I'll see what I can do. That's not going to go well. So this scene gets a little wild. Yelena gets an assignment to take out somebody that is trying to rob Valentina. So she gets there. It's the agent from Falcon and Winter Soldier. Timu Captain America, as I call him. So they start fighting. And Ghost comes in and starts fighting Timu Captain America. Then Taskmaster comes in and starts fighting. They all eventually, they're like, what is going on? So they eventually figure out that they were all put there together to try and kill each other. But this didn't happen before Ghost brutally shoots Taskmaster in the head. And that's the end of Taskmaster. She's done. She's not coming back. They did say there was a shocking death early in the movie, and this was it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, okay. So eventually the three of them are just standing there, they're trying to figure out, and they meet Bob, just a random guy who just pops up, and they're like, who are you? And Bob's like, hey, guys, what's up? I'm Bob. He was so stupid, but so good at first. Between going back and forth between the Congress scene and the fighting scene, we find out Valentina all lied to them about why they had to be there, and they stopped fighting. So for the time being, they're like, we're good. We find out Valentina, her building is somehow clean, and even the congressman was like, how'd you do it? How'd you make it so clean that we couldn't find a thing? So they know she's dirty, but we'll get back to her at the ending. So we find out Valentina was pretty much trying to kill them all, and she almost successfully did it. until Ghost got the door open and they got out. But while that's happening, the explosion happens, Yelena hits her head and she goes back in time to seeing her little friend. I mean, they were like 7 or 8 that got killed by the guy, and somehow Bob was there. So Bob's getting an interesting story off the jump. We find out that Team Captain America is not a fan of Bob, and Bob's not a fan of Team Captain America, so the feeling is mutual. At one point, you can see Bob and Yelena, they're getting close, they're talking about their stories, and Team Captain America's like, we done with the therapy session? He was great in this movie because he's that guy that you just want to punch in the face just because of how he acts, and he did great. So Wyatt Russell, hats off to you. In a mini scene from Bucky's apartment, we find out Bucky puts his arm in the dishwasher, so that's not something I saw coming. Going back to the 4 of them, we see them trying to plan how to get out of this building. So she looks up, they all look up, and Yelena just goes, so nobody can fly? They kind of form like a wall to get up, but at one point, Bob's like, I gotta sneeze, and they were like, if you sneeze, we're all dying, so don't sneeze. So they make it out. We find out Bob is Sentry, but Bob eventually does get to sneeze, but luckily it didn't cause any problems. So they get up there, and we go to John Walker's past, which is Team Captain America. And it sees him taking care of his son, but he's on his phone, he's not really paying attention, and the wife's yelling at him. Eventually we find out the wife and daughter leave, and Yelena looks at him in a different light, but later on she throws a cheap shot at him, and that comes back into play. They have the building surrounded. They were like, there's only one way out, and we somehow find out that Yelena's soccer team was called the Thunderbolts. And obviously, name of the movie. Yelena takes Bob under her wing. She straps him to her back, literally like a baby, to get him out of there because he's not powerful just yet. They got out by using the men's uniforms, and eventually they almost got caught, but Bob was like, oh, I'll sacrifice myself. They're like, no. So they shoot him about 200 times. He goes down. They're like, okay. Bob wakes up, goes up to the sky, and they're like, uh-oh. And even the other Thunderbolts are like, whoa. So, of course, we find out Valentina was indeed trying to kill the Thunderbolts. And Yelena, Team Captain America, and Ghost are all in the desert. They're trying to get out. They're like, what do? We don't know. All of a sudden, we hear a horn, and it's getting louder and louder, and Yelena just goes, oh, no. And the other two are like, who is that? And the limo pulls up. It's the Red Guardian. He gets out. He's like, Yelena, they're trying to kill you. Get in the car, Yelena. And the other two just look at Yelena, and Yelena's like, oh, no. So they get in the car. They drive off. They have a conversation. Team Cap mentions the Thunderbolts, and Red Guardian's like, you told them about the Thunderbolts? They were like, that was an exciting season. Cap and Ghost in the back are just like rolling their eyes. They're like, this is terrible, but this is our only way out, so we gotta roll with it. So we see them driving, and eventually Team Cap turns around and he's like, uh-oh, we got company. It's the convoy trying to get them and take them out. So he's like, don't worry, this car is bulletproof. We go to find out that it's not really bulletproof. It's bulletproof-ish, he says. And then at one point, he's hitting buttons on the car. There's strobe lights in the back seat playing. And everyone's like, and Yelena's like, who are you driving around? Like, what? We're never going to mention that again. And I love that it was just a one-off. I would, if we find out in the future, great. But, like, just Red Guardian being Red Guardian. Oh, my God. So at first glance, I thought it was Bob trying to save the day. But it turns out Bucky Barnes got back into action and saved the Thunderbolts. For the time being. Because then Bucky takes out the Thunderbolts. I was like, oh, okay. So going back to Valentina and Mel, they go to Avengers Tower, where Bob is staying. I was like, okay. So they're getting use out of the Avengers Tower. Hint, hint. They have a chat, and then Valentina goes back to like the dark time, and she sees her dad get murdered. Bob can somehow cast these nightmares on you. Going back to the Thunderbolts, Bucky has them all held hostage. Bucky takes a shot at John about the wife and kid leaving him, and Yelena looks at him like, ugh. And it was a little rough, but eventually Bucky lets them go and says, "You're going to help me." So kind of like the Suicide Squad of the DCU, Bucky tells them they can run from their past, but it's going to catch up to them. And that was kind of like a moment like, okay, we need to do something good here. Bob is showing Valentina the powers that he has, and Valentina's like, all right, we're going to do just fine here. So Bucky is driving the Thunderbolts, and the Red Guardian's like, "Mr. Soldier." And he's like, "What's the plan?" And Bucky's like, "The plan." And he just drives through Avengers Tower at the bottom, crashes through, and they all just start fighting. And Red Guardian's like, "I like this plan." So they beat up everybody, but Valentina gets on like the loudspeaker. She's like, "Guys, I left the door unlocked for you." She's like, "I just put up that drywall." Funny, she's so inconvenienced more than anything. So they go upstairs. She introduces Sentry to the rest of the team. And in that moment, I was like, Bob dyed his hair? 2 minutes later, Ghost goes, "Did you really just have to dye your hair for this?" I'm like, thank you, Ghost. I appreciate that. Speaking of Ghost, she wasn't really much of a character in Ant-Man and Wasp. They gave her some comedic roles here and timing, and she did really good. I'm hoping we see more of her. She's in Doomsday. But even after that, like, she actually did really good. So they try and take Valentina, of course, but Sentry is not letting that happen. And at one point, Valentina looks at the Red Guardian and she goes, "What are you, Santa Claus?" Nice gesture to David Harbour playing Santa Claus in Violent Night. I thought that was hilarious. So, and then we see how strong Sentry is. Sentry's like the strongest you can be in the MCU. So hopefully he's on Team Avengers in Doomsday. Hopefully. And he just takes out the Thunderbolts like it's nothing. We see a brief face turn from Sentry. Wrestling term, means he's a good guy. He doesn't want to kill them. He's like, "I don't have to. They're not a threat to me." But Valentina's not happy about that. She's like, "You do what I say." And eventually Bob puts her in a corner, and she tries to taser him. She can't, but Mel successfully tasers him and takes him out for the time being. So eventually the Thunderbolts just like take the L and move on. We see Yelena and Red Guardian having a heart-to-heart about losing Natasha in the good old days of the soccer team. Yeah, it's a nice moment for the time being. And then we see Sentry can just turn people into shadows. It's kind of hard to beat that. But he's the strongest being in the MCU for now, for the time being. Sentry's destroying the town, making the town dark, making the city dark. And the Thunderbolts do save a lot of people. Red Guardian saves a little girl from being crushed by debris. And at first you're like, yeah. But then 2 seconds later, Sentry. I'm like, no! So Yelena walks towards everybody getting Sentry'd, as I call it. And she's like, "Take me." And they were like, "No, don't you do it." But she did it. And we find out there's like a whole nother story to her training days and all that. We see double Yelena at one point. But like the one we see is not looking good compared to the regular one. And then she sees Bob in the mirror. They have a chat. And we also see Bob's very dark past at that point. So again, we see the whole city's going real dark. We see Bob's really evil room, how dark it is. And then we see Bob, but just in black form, like dark character and all. And he's like, "You can never escape this. This is who you are." And Bob beats evil Bob pretty good. And the city comes back to light. So eventually we think the Thunderbolts save the day. So as they come out, they see Valentina. And they were like, "Valentina, you are done. You are coming with us." So Valentina like walks away. So they walk through a curtain. Then all of a sudden, Valentina is speaking. And there's press there. And they're just like, "All right, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do?" And she's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the new Avengers." And you're like, "Whoa. Oh, wow. Okay." And you're like, huh, that's how they're going to end this. And all of them are like, "What do we do?" Yelena whispers to Valentina, she's like, "We own you now." So hence why the Thunderbolts has the asterisk. And yeah, they are the new Avengers for the time being. And that's how the movie ends. The mid-credit scene is actually really funny. We see the Red Guardian in like the grocery store or whatever. And he's trying to tell this woman, like, "Yes, buy this box of Wheaties. It's important." And you see them there on the cover of the Wheaties box as a reference to earlier in the movie. And she's like, yeah, I'll take it. And she just puts it down and walks away. And he's like, "Oh, okay." So there's that. And then the after credit. Longest one in MCU history, but it was worth it. Almost 3 minutes. We see them talking about what's next, what they're going to do, and they get like a distress call. And they're like, they have to go look into it. Meanwhile, they're talking about how Captain America, the real Captain America, Sam Wilson, trademarked the Avengers name. So Red Guardian took it upon himself to trademark Avengers with a Z. And they were just like, no, we're not doing that. Hilarious moment. But they're like, all right, open up the picture. Let's see who it is. We see a spaceship coming to Earth, and it pans down. The Fantastic Four logo. That scene was shot on the set of Doomsday. So that is the first scene from Doomsday that we've seen. So the Fantastic Four are in the Doomsday timeline. Boom. Awesome post-credit scene. Loved it. So to piggyback off of what we saw in Thunderbolts, crazy theory. I can't say I came up with it. My boy from the Pipe Bomb Sessions podcast, Fizz, came up with it. Go subscribe and check him out. He's doing some great work. The after credit to Thunderbolts. We see the spaceship of the Fantastic Four flying in. What if that's not exactly the Fantastic Four controlling that spaceship? What if it's Doctor Doom coming to Earth? Crazy, I know. But imagine that, let's just say Captain America calls out to the Fantastic Four for help. They're on the way. Him, Bucky, and let's say Rhodey are there to meet up with them. The spaceship lands, door opens, but the Fantastic Four don't come out. Doctor Doom comes out, whoops all three of them, and then possibly, you can have him reveal himself to them as Tony Stark. Let me know what you guys think about that wild theory. And that is my review of Thunderbolts. 8 out of 10. There were a little slow points, not gonna lie to you. But overall, really, really good. I was impressed. Yelena was the MVP. Red Guardian stole the show. Even Timu, Cap, and Ghost were really great. So I was very happy with what happened there. The after credit, it's going to set up something major in the future, so that's pretty cool in my opinion. What did you think about Thunderbolts? Comment below your takes and how we feeling about the MCU going forward. I think there's a lot of hype now. I think we're back on track, and Fantastic Four is only like 2.5 months away-ish, so yeah. But until next time, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. Plenty more content coming, folks. I think we have another movie review next. I'm not sure. And then we have Karate Kid at the end of the month, so that should be fun. But until next time, I am Bobby from Bobby's Breakdowns, and we will see you in the next one. Later.